And good night.
Good night.
Everybody had to click that continue button if you want to stay recorded.
Continue.
Okay, gentlemen, good night, and thank you all for joining us. What we're going to try to do on a regular basis is on the second Wednesday of each month, Roger Ahmad will host the session. We're having a discussion tonight. Next week, we're going into some video, next month into some video, the month after that with the book club and so on. Also, Roger De Pisa will host on the third Wednesday on a regular basis starting from October. Between now and then, I have him on different Wednesdays to keep things entertaining. And Orson is going to host on the first Wednesday of each month. So let me go in order. Orson first Wednesday, Mother second Wednesday, DP third Wednesday, Dave Gurahu on the fourth Wednesday. So we will have teams then that would emerge to keep things interesting as we move forward. Peter Holder, I have you down for a session. I want for you to confirm it's the Wednesday after your birthday. So you might be able to, bring some knowledge from turning 62. All right.
I'm not so sure about that, but I'll definitely present.
Cool. All right. So you know the topic tonight. We're going to talk about your COVID experiences, and our facilitator is none other than Roger Mada Ahmad. The mic is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Dennison. Yes. So, hey, Taku.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good. So we're just getting started here. So, a thought occurred to me a few weeks ago, and I just reached out to Dave and Dennis and said, hey, how about this? COVID is omnipresent, but at the same time, why don't we have a specific discussion about COVID in terms of, the past, a year and a half has passed, and much water has gone under the bridge there. And also about the present, what's happening right now, and then what do we see for the future? In terms of the past and present, really, I believe that everybody has a bit of a unique situation, how COVID has impacted them. And this is an opportunity for us to understand our brothers here, what they may have gone through, or what, and it could be good or it could be bad, right? But just to generate some discussion about that. And so we're hoping to that you guys will be able to share. Depending on how many people here so far, I'm seeing, 5 and 5, 10, and 14 so far. So I'm thinking when we start to talk about our personal experiences, if we want to give everybody an opportunity to talk, and maybe you can chat for about 3 or 4 minutes about your experiences. That way we'll get everybody a chance to talk, right? What I will do is I have a short PowerPoint slide. Actually, I will kind of go through it fast. It has a lot of information, but I'll try to go through it fast because I believe we want to get to the discussion more than anything else. But the PowerPoint will reflect back on some of the milestones over the last year and a half, and that type of thing. And then once we go through that exercise, then we'll ask fellows to share some of their personal experiences with COVID to date. And to keep track of it, I'm going to suggest that we do this in alphabetical order by first name. So I'm seeing like Dave. Dave might be the first, unless somebody else bonks in and throw him down. But Dave and Dennison, and we'll go like that. And you guys keep me honest in alphabetical order, and go by your real name. So, not mother. So,
how, if I may interrupt, how it is we dealing with the class between yourself and myself?
well, I was Roger A and you was Roger D, but it'll be good because Radford will come before me and we'll separate, I will separate the two DPs, right?
I see, okay.
All right, and look, owner, we had to call him Peter. right? Okay. Let me share my screen, Roger DePisa.
Oh, one
Don't
second.
mind.
Let me just set that up for you.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. And
The owner is here.
the owner is here. That is the important thing.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. So you guys should be seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. So, like I said, I'm going to try to get through this quickly here. I hesitated with this. I didn't want to give too much information or put down too much information and take away from discussion. So, my compromise is to go through it fast. So, COVID-19 timeline. Oh, okay. There's the first one. I didn't fix that. All right. December 31st was when there was the first hints of this pneumonia that was called this disease that was caused in pneumonia in China. That was 2019. On January 11th, China reported its first death from this coronavirus. It was a 61-year-old guy from Wuhan, our age, right? January 20th, the World Health Organization reported cases outside of China. January 21st, the United States had its first case in Washington State, man in his 30s. January 23rd, China placed the whole city of Wuhan, 11 million people under quarantine orders. Everything was shut down. February 7th, the first doctor who was making noise about this Chinese doctor, Dr. Li Wenliang, the man died after he had brought to the front that that this virus was existing. And remember, there were doctors falling out of windows in China, you know, quote unquote. On February 29th, 2 months in, first death in the US. March the 8th, Italy went into lockdown, 16 million people, and they were suffering like hell. Obviously they didn't have anything to battle this virus. March the 11th, the World Health Organization declared a pandemic. March the 19th, China now reports no new domestic cases. They locked down the whole damn country, and all of a sudden, no cases. March 20th, New York says, the mayor says, listen, we are now the epicenter of this crisis. March 23rd, the United Kingdom went into a three-week national lockdown. March 24th, Modi sent India into a lockdown. 1.3 billion people went into lockdown with curfews, etc. March 25th, the WHO warned that the US would become the global epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic. And so said, so done, right? April 2nd, Department of Labor showed that the economy lost 6.6 million jobs. And this was 3 months in. Donald Trump, importantly, and if we had followed that advice, maybe, we wouldn't be in bad situation as we are in now. He was suggesting that we, inject disinfectants, Oops, sorry. Researchers at Pfizer on May 5th said they are working on a never-before-tried coronavirus vaccine that might be available by September. May 7th, the WHO said that, listen, it could kill between 83,000 and 190,000 in Africa in the first year, if not contained. I'm not sure what the actual numbers are, but maybe we'll be able to see that later. May 21st, I didn't know AstraZeneca was British-Swedish, but they received $1 billion in funding from the US Health Department. May 31st, this is after George Floyd, thousands of Americans gathered in cities, and yeah, there was a real worry that this would only increase the spread of the virus. I'm not sure if that was borne out to the extent where people thought it would be. June 28th, the global death toll was 500,000, and the number of cases was 10 million. July 3rd, the number of cases passed 11 million. August 11th, 20 million. September 18th, 30 million. September 29th, 1 million dead of COVID. October 20th, 40 million. November 9th, 50 million. Spreading crazily. November 16th, Moderna announced that they had their vaccine, and it was 94.5% effective. Pfizer announced its vaccine was also submitted for FDA approval. The 18th, the US counted 250,000 deaths from COVID. AstraZeneca announced its vaccine can be around 90% effective on the 23rd. December 2nd, the UK became the first country to formally approve the Pfizer and BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. December 8th, the first person in the UK and the world, a 90-year-old woman, received that vaccine. And the FDA approved the Pfizer COVID vaccine on December 11th. And similarly, they approved the Moderna a few days later. So this all these milestones was taken from an NBC website, and unfortunately they didn't continue it through to 2021. But you know, these were the big things, and it's amazing how rapidly that spread. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I think the big thing that is missing from this is that you know, Trump departed office on the 20th of January. Major difference.
No, that's not the biggest thing.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that was omitted from the thing was that the annual reunion was canceled as a consequence of COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing.
Okay.
For the second
Time last year and this year.
The other thing that's omitted is, I think if you had carried it through when the first vaccine was administered in the US, did I miss that?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't have that on there. When was
Okay.
that, Austin?
That was, I'm thinking that was in January, but
I guess so.
that's a guess. I haven't looked it up.
Yeah.
But the irony for us is the person who got the first vaccine in the United States is a lady who was born in Jamaica.
Oh.
So she was in worked in Long Island, and she was the first person in the United States to get this.
That was a nurse. That was a nurse out down there.
Exactly.
In New York, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I remember.
Yeah. So I thought that was wow, amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
The other irony I noticed from that presentation, Roger, is that AstraZeneca was funded 10 billion for 10 whatever number from the US.
Yeah.
And ironically, the US not using the AstraZeneca. It's
True.
using
True.
So maybe they know what they're sending to other people, you know.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah. One date missing in terms of Trinidad and Tobago, March 13th, Friday afternoon. We left school, and on the road, you got the message on the radio that country going on lockdown, and from then we am yet to sit in a class.
Yeah. Yes. That's important from a Trinidad perspective, and obviously, you know, I'm not going to get as much. Express had some stuff on Trinidad, but there was a lot of stuff to go through, and not all of it was COVID. So I didn't want to inundate you guys with too much of that, but feel free to.
But that one date.
March the 13th.
And that's the same date it happened here, you know. We had the 13th, they closed it. I remember having a field trip on the 13th. My students, we went back home, and then the weekend, the governor here said, school closed. And we had 4 days. We had 4 days to learn how to teach online.
This was
So
2021.
2020.
2020 or 2021?
2020.
Okay.
So we home since that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Same
That
here.
might be a nice way for me to kick it off and talk about what's happening with me. And
I have a few more slides, Dave. So
Okay, go ahead.
I'll share my screen again, Roger. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where are we? All right. So yeah. Okay. So let me just get you guys out the faces of my screen. All right. So this was January 20th. This represents, these dots represent the number of cases, and you can see the legend in the bottom left-hand corner. And you know, the smallest dot is 1 to 100 people. Greater than the next dot is 100 to 1,000, and the next dot is 1,000 to 20,000. So this was 28th of March, 2020, and this was the US. So you can see the concentration in New York State, but everywhere else have these tiny little freckly dots, right? Los Angeles has an amount as well. So now, if we go forward to the 20th of June, 3 months later, this now is how the map looked with cases. You can see the significant spread. The dots are bigger. The thousands, 20,000 are dominating. 20,000 to 500 is in there at some of the bigger places. But look at the eastern seaboard, right? And stuff. And we know what hell New York was going through at the time too. Then, by the way, on the side there, OWS, that was Operation Warp Speed, announcing the 5 companies likely to produce the vaccines: Moderna, Oxford University, AstraZeneca, Janssen, Merck, and Pfizer. I think Janssen and Merck have fallen off, right? They never came to pass, right? Not sure. Okay. And the US had reached 2 million by June the 10th, 2 million cases. And then the next slide shows, let's see, 2021, right? January 2021. And the US passes 300,000 daily cases, right? They set a record for 2 weeks in a row. The US set a record for COVID-19 deaths and new case numbers. And look at the map now compared to obviously where it started, right? And then now the legend shows a much bigger circle, a couple of much bigger circles, 750,000 to 2 million people in the bigger circles, right? And then this is the end of May type of thing. And I took away the legend because I wanted to show Los Angeles, Southern California there, how big the things were. So this is actually an improvement. I think it was worse somewhere a few months earlier. But that's to show you how things spread. Any questions, comments on that?
This is not the current situation. This is cumulatively, right?
No, I think this is current situation. It's a good question, Roger. I understood it to be the current situation because these dots are smaller than if I had gone back to March.
Hey, Ahmad,
Yeah.
could you just go back like 3 or 4 slides and just click through them so we could see them flipping like pages in a book and see how it?
All right.
Yeah.
So let's go here then.
Yeah.
So that's January. That's 28th of March. So 20th of June. 16th of January. And now this would be about the end of May, close to current.
It looks cumulative to me. Some of the dots
I think
look
it is
bigger.
cumulative. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
right now,
because-
right now that we're in June, I don't think the LA area is as big as that now.
Yeah, I think it's cumulative too, because the cases in the US have dropped
dramatically
dramatically. Yeah, and the
Yeah.
death rate has dropped dramatically also.
Okay.
because of the vaccine.
Yeah, because of yeah.
Yeah, you could be right. I
Yeah,
did not
yeah.
I can't for sure say differently. Yeah.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah.
So the lady who got the first vaccine, her name is Sandra Lindsay, and she is an ICU nurse at Long Island Jewish Medical Center, and it was on December the 14th. So Caribbean woman, first woman in the US to get the shot, December the 14th.
Excellent. And if I remember well, she spoke so well.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, she did. She was very articulate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mother, these pictures are very graphic and the story is told. So I think you had the impact that you wanted to have about
Right.
the
There's
increase
one.
over time.
Yeah. There's one last thing I wanted to quickly show you guys. Let me see how I can get to there. All right. Here we go. Okay. Can you see that map there now?
You want the trainer map or the
No, you should be seeing, or am I not?
We still
You should
see
be
the
seeing
map with
a map of the world. No? Oh,
You might want to
okay.
go to slideshow. Are you on slideshow?
No, this is actually my going on Google Chrome. So what do I have to do to change to
Switch-
Google
You have to
Chrome?
switch. You
Change
have
your
to go to
screen.
share and switch
Switch
screen.
your screen. Switch your screen.
Share,
Sorry, do?
share again.
Do a new share
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll stop sharing
Nice.
and share it again.
and then go back to here.
We
Hey,
seen a
Ducky,
bunch of,
welcome,
we
man.
seen a bunch of handsome people here now, but go ahead.
Wahid, if you could hear us, welcome. Good to see you.
Yeah, man, I hear all the boys.
All right.
I'm in my bed, right? It is, I just
Yeah,
decided.
yeah. Well, we want to cover up with you, you know.
Okay,
Roger,
so
we seen you go now.
this is the global map here, and this map will show us the number of deaths, cumulative, I believe, in this case, as I slide across. And if you look here where it says South Africa, I can go on any country, and it has the date here of where it is. And this graph shows the overall from January 1st to now. So, but it's interesting, as I slide to the right, you will see how the countries will be colored in according to the legend up on the right-hand side here, right? 1 to 200 deaths, 201 to 1,000, right? It gets darker as things go on. So I'll just slide across, take about 45 seconds. So there, China shows up on January 27th in terms of deaths, right? Things get worse in China. Oh, it's starting to show up in Iran, Italy, and France, the United States, Australia, Canada, South America, Africa. Small numbers relative, but some of those countries there, you can see they're much darker. The UK and places in Europe and especially the United States. And as we keep on going, you're seeing increased darkness. And we're now like June 19th. And if I click on the US here, so that's the US. And things are increasing, countries getting darker, Brazil. I could even find if I'm capable, Trinidad, right? Sorry.
Venezuela.
Yeah, just.
I Trinidad just now.
Yeah, just. There's Trinidad, right? So, I mean, that shows that Trinidad was going along nice and flat. And then October 1st, things got worse and things got really bad after April, right?
Carnival was in March or what? I don't understand.
We didn't have a carnival.
Just shut straight up.
Yeah. So, so just if I keep on going here, just quickly, you're seeing countries getting darker. India has gotten really dark there. Brazil, the U.S. getting even darker. South Africa on the continent, they're the ones who are looking pretty bad, and so on and so on and so on till we are to where we are today. And 3.7 million deaths in the world overall. So that's just show you how it has evolved across the world with the number of deaths. Okay.
Can I make a couple of observations before you read this? Because I'm looking at Africa.
Oh.
No, this don't.
You want me to keep it? Sorry.
Yes, please.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I was looking at the African situation, and it seems that outside of South Africa and Egypt, and probably Tunisia, the numbers are fairly low.
Yes.
As well as Australia. Okay. I was listening to a radio program recently, and they were making the comment that it's probably low in Africa because of several reasons. Many of the deaths that we see or we've seen in the States and in Canada and so on have come from elderly people, especially people in elderly care homes. COVID devastated that situation. In Africa, many people don't live in, what do you call that, congregated home, elderly home settings, so you're not going to have like a whole heap of elderly people congregating together, right? And that could probably be one of the reasons. The other reason as well is because of air conditioning. Okay, in the winter, everybody inside. In the summer, everybody inside with air conditioning. Okay, so there's not that natural flow of air where people live. You see, right?
Right,
Unlike
right.
here in the States and in the States and elsewhere, which is
Right.
also another problem by COVID, rampant.
Yeah. There's a third reason, and that is the population, the age of the population in Africa. It is reported that 77% of the population is under the age of 35.
Yeah, I made that observation when I had given the talk that most of the African population is like under 20.
But things can change rapidly, because remember in India, that was the talk too. Part of the reason why India was doing so well was that the population was young, right? But now India is amongst the worst. So, there are so many variables that can turn things upside down. You can't really count or bank on anything for too long.
Yeah.
All right, I will stop sharing now, and we'll get to the discussion part. And just as a reminder, we'll go in alphabetical order by first name. Hi, Wayne. And let's see. I think Dave is still the first. Where is he? There? Yeah, Mr. Longwells, go ahead.
Yeah.
And then we'll go to Dennison, right? Yeah.
Okay. Before I talk about that, I have to remember something come up about first name. I remember when I had Batashil teaching geography, Tommy Peebles asked him, "Oh, you always starting at the beginning of the alphabet and getting all these people in the chapters in the question. And by the time you come down to P for Peebles, I'm not sure if you're going to get something at the beginning of the chapter or the end, because Batashil used to always ask for a Z or A. So Batashil tell him why you're changing him to asshole, but just in case, so I don't know about that. But briefly, from a personal point of view, I will talk about pre, post, and present and future. Pre, I was, one of the major impact pre-COVID was being able to travel and move around. My wife used to always ask me, what are you going to do when you can't travel? Well, 2020 showed that, and I ain't be able to travel. So it impacted on that. From a personal point of view, it gave me an opportunity to reflect on things like, just reemphasize some of the things that I thought were important and put back into perspective. Like right now, having from shut down from March to now, March 2020, we haven't had a chance to have any kind of social interaction with family and friends, which is a big thing for me. To the extent now that we already booked a ticket from now for July 23rd to August 12th to go to Virginia and meet with some families. So on that level, it also gave me a lot of time to reflect on other things that I always thought was important, but never really, paid much attention to that. In terms of a personal note, I was very, very cognizant of being a diabetic for 32 years and the potential for that. So we were really, really strict here at home. I-95 mask or whatever, N95 mask, and making sure we, super sanitize and whatever. And Susan and I, fortunately for us, we were able to isolate like that. And economically, I must say the US being part of academia, we had all that funding and being able to stay from home and get full pay. So that was less of a worry. Growing up as a small boy, the lack of toilet paper was not a problem. I had a family who used to use a bottle of toilet paper. So I used some of that. In terms of like the larger scale, academically and the profession, we dealt with what it was, and we started to talk about some of that changes I was going ahead of Raja Di Pisa last week. I can see that as I move forward in the profession, because we were forced to look at different ways to deliver our courses and deal with online teaching, etc., I could see being adapting some of those technologies or strategies even when we get out of COVID. And I could see that, and I wouldn't go too much into detail about that right now, but as we move forward, that's on a personal level. I think I can adapt to that. And I think I could get used to this kind of, at this phase of my life, this online teaching at home. My wife did ask about, if I could stay home so long for a year, but you have to know how you answer that question carefully. You have to say, love, I don't want you to get fed up with me, right? But let's leave it like that. So that's why we just go home, right? Yeah. On the larger scale, in the profession that I'm in, which is agriculture, here in California, in a way, COVID has now caused us to focus on people who were not recognized in the food industry. And I'll speak directly to the migrant labor or the people south of the border. And very little people know how close we came to our food emergency and not being able to get food here in the US and globally. But the good thing that came out of that, and it has always been so in California administrators like the governor, etc., has always recognized the importance of the Mexicans and the Hispanic community, unlike the administration who was in power at the time. So one good thing that came out of that is that a large amount of the California budget went into making sure now that that community is actually funded. Because for those of you in the US, when the stimulus package came out, it went out, the money went out to the people who were documented in terms of filling out their IRS documents, etc. So all these non-documented workers were not being paid. But Governor Newsom here made sure that money was actually sent out to them. So I could see in the big picture, a greater recognition on the importance of food, and for that community, to the extent that California Department has also now pumped $94 million just into developing that agriculture sector. So I think I've addressed it from the personal and the larger scale. I don't know what else you want me to say, Roger. But
Dave, I had one question. Early on, you said something about the school system got funded, so you guys got paid. So who funded the school system?
Well, actually, California system went into their reserve budget. But subsequent to that, so the answer to the question is they funded it, and we made sure. We were panicking about how we would take care of some of the deficit. But then with the CARES package that came out from Biden, the California government was actually reimbursed. So we actually looking at getting a 4% increase over the next year, in spite of that. So the answer is federal and state funding.
Right. Larry, you have a question.
Yeah, Dave, this question is a two-part question. What was the traffic like in California? This is really a question Gerald would have asked. What's the traffic like after the emergency was declared?
After the traffic was, well, I can't speak about the LA region, but definitely during the times of the lockdown, it probably went down. I could talk about the air quality during the traffic. I have tracked that and I can see that, the numbers went down, but I don't know where you're heading with that, but go ahead with the traffic.
The follow-up question is, were you able to drive faster with less traffic on the road, or were you still
my response
Sunday evening drive?
And you know what we just say, Yoni Makaram, we know why you're asking that, right? Because the speed of the traffic in California is not determined by the number of vehicles. I know you want to ask me whether my wife driving or me. We know we just get placed faster when my wife driving. All right, so we understand where you're coming from.
That was a question for Jared, right? I had to ask it for him since he's not here.
Just to give you a background about people, for those of you who do not know, one day Jared is
don't get them no background. If they want to find out, come to the next line.
All right.
But back on topic. Any other questions, or is that good enough, Roger?
Yeah, I think that's plenty good.
3 minutes by.
Yeah. Plenty good, Dave. Dave, you eat into Denison's minutes, yeah. So Denison, you're next.
All right. I will shoot for 2.5 minutes here. So for me, the biggest emotional issue was dealing with the scarcity of food. So last year, around February, March, with me being the only member of my family or friend circle living in Nebraska, I was scared that with the pandemic, we wouldn't have been able to get food to be able to support the family. So last year, I planted more stuff in the garden than I've done in the entire 30 years that I've been here in Nebraska. So that was a big new development.
And a positive, I guess, Dennis.
Yeah,
And a positive.
and my wife was very instrumental in then taking what we got from the garden and roasting and canning and preserving and that kind of thing. So in case we didn't have food during winter, we would have had some of them supplies, right? And so she also has been keeping the pantry stocked. So when we use stuff, she's buying from Walmart and Amazon and thing and stocking back up, right? So that was a big development. Another development is that I went through the last couple of months of 2019 and all of 2020 without getting new work in my consulting business. And by the time we got to December of 2020, I had no other choice but to start looking for jobs. And I ended up landing a job in May of 2021. So there has been a major job change where I am not my own boss now. I'm down at the bottom of the totem pole. If I have to make a decision, I had to ask somebody who had to ask somebody who had to ask somebody before I could do something that is just common sense. You know, those kind of things are impacting the life. I want to share what my wife says. She says 2020 is one of the happiest years of her life on the planet. She said that I wasn't traveling, and in particular, I wasn't going to Trinidad, so she didn't have to worry about nothing. Right?
She didn't have to worry about other women?
Well, mother, that is your business. That is not mine. I don't do that. Right. So what she said to me was she knew where her husband was and she knew where her son was at any point in time. And we didn't have to be in and out of the house. Now, if for those of you who know her, you know that she's an introverted person. So she didn't have much use for social interaction outside of the family circle. So she was very happy. We sustained 2 deaths within our family network in the last month. So, and both of them were down in Trinidad. So I'm concerned about what might be happening there. And then the final
Dennis,
thing I want to touch on.
Dennis, were those COVID deaths or were they just other?
Yeah, 2 COVID deaths is what I'm talking about. Yeah, and one of them was an 84-year-old doctor that I shared on the WhatsApp chat, right? Dr. Rampol from Rio Claro. All right. And the last thing that I'll touch on is I was very impressed with the way that Nebraska organized its COVID vaccination campaign. You just needed to go online. There was a network of places. You just clicked your appointment slot and you went. When you went in there were not a whole lot of people in line waiting. So when Wendy and I went the first time, there was one person in front of us. And by the time we came through the door, they took that person into a room and we were the only people there. And in 2-3 minutes, we were in our room and somebody else came in. And so each patient was vaccinated in their own room and there was no congregation of people in or out of the facility. So, you know, I thought it was very well done. And if we want to recommend to Trinidad how they could do this, that's a potential model. I am done. Microphone back to you, Mother.
Okay, thanks, Dennis.
Let me just ask a question about Nebraska. How receptive are the individuals on there to taking the vaccine?
Over 60% of the Nebraskans got their first shot within 2 months of it becoming available. And they were, when I went for my second shot, they were saying to to me that the number of people with both shots was about 55%. So some of the people who took the shot the first time decided that they were not coming back. Right, but they also said that by now, right, which was the end of May, that people in Nebraska who were not interested in the vaccine were unlikely to come. So the next 40% of the people were unlikely to even sign up. Those are the anti-vaxxers and so on, right? So.
All right. Point of how we proceed here. Question. One way we could do it is fellas could stick to just what their experiences have been to date with COVID and where they are right now. And we could hold the future discussion to postulate on in a larger discussion. Only question about that, will we have enough time? Or do you guys want to speak to all three things in your 4 to 5 minute slot?
Let people play it by ear, I think.
Yeah, I think you should let people share whatever they want to share within the 2 or 3 minutes that they have.
Yeah, I think we do need to stick to the timeline though, because it's already close to 9 o'clock. So
yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So we'll move on.
So Roger, keep us to 3 minutes. Keep us disciplined.
All right, 3 minutes. All right. So now the next person we'll go to is George. But you know, he used to be Thakur and he would have been at the end of the line, but you know, he changed the name to George. So we're gonna go with George and then Govin and then Ian. So you'll have your 3 minutes, Thakur.
So I thought we were going by proper names, which means I should be the end before Waheed, but that's okay. So I guess, you know, we had combination here. We became careful, never had to observe so many precautions before in our lives, but that's what you did. We had one death in the family in Florida, a sister-in-law who died of brain cancer, and we held all services by Zoom. Zoom became a lifeline for all of us, and continues to be at this point. And that was a unique experience in itself, which I and many people in the family thought was actually turned out to be a good thing for those of you who have not experienced that before, because you can share all of the events and emotions, but don't have to worry about, you know, it's good and bad, right? You don't have to worry about families coming around, what are you going to do? But then you miss being together with your family. The flip side to that, we shared births by Zoom, we shared weddings by Zoom, and those were unique experiences as well. I never felt food insecurity like maybe a lot of people did. I always grew a lot of stuff in the garden. So at any time I have, 3 to 6 months worth of supplies and food in the basement and in the fridge and freezer. Same with toilet paper. 150 rolls is pretty standard to have in the basement. So, we were kind of golden with that. We had a COVID outbreak in the family. My son got sick from work and brought it home to his wife, who was pregnant, 7 months pregnant at the time. And he had a young daughter who was 3.5. And somehow this is the thing about COVID, right? You can't tell how it's going to affect people. He and his wife shared the same bed in the same room for 3 days while he was symptomatic, and she did not get it.
Wow.
His daughter spent 1-2 days with him, and she got it, spread it to her grandparents. We took our daughter-in-law home with us for a couple of weeks and kind of spared her from coming down with COVID while she was pregnant. We have a new grandson now that's 6 weeks old, and that's been a blessing for us too. So, it's been a change. We were lucky. All of us were lucky. My wife, my kids were lucky to be working and getting paid throughout the COVID, even when we didn't work. For me, I had 3 months at home when school shut down on full pay, literally doing nothing except taking a few calls and answering some emails. And then we went back to work with a lot of restrictions, but we've been open at school for a year now, and that's been a learning experience. And luckily, we seem to be coming to an end to that. So that's been a big learning experience for us too. To how do we deal with something different, right? And we've all been forced to learn different skills, and that's a silver lining to COVID. on a national scale, right? You see things that's happened that people have been forced to do that the US has been so far behind. Telehealth, online banking, all of those things. We've come a long way, and I think it's a good thing for us. Thank you.
All right. Perfect timing. Any questions for Takur?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, help.
If I might ask quickly, Takur,
Yeah.
what school do you work at? What level of students?
So I don't teach. I operate in. For those of you who are familiar with New York, we have a BOCE, the Board of Cooperative Education Services. We provide career tech and special education services for schools, for 51 school districts across almost half of Long Island. I don't teach. I do facilities management and buildings and grounds. So we provide, we upgrade and maintain the educational space for the students to keep them healthy and happy. But I don't really teach.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Question. I have a question.
Go ahead, Ona.
So, Takur, how many people live in your house?
At this point, it's just my wife and I.
And you keep 150 toilet paper rolls.
Listen, we are Costco shoppers. Okay, so maybe 120, right? But we're Costco shoppers. And
Just
I see it in sale, we buy it and stuff.
for him now, man.
If I could just have one more minute to say something else, right? So we happened to be in Trinidad just in early March when this thing was just starting to hit the US. And I kind of recognized early, and this is not, just a reality. I recognized early what was happening. And part of that is just my long held belief. And maybe this can be a discussion we can have later on, that the human race is due for a die out. And we've been evading this over the last 10 to 20 years by science. And we've done it again this year. Although we've lost, millions of people, but we're due for this. And when I saw what was happening, I remember being in Trinidad and placing online orders on Costco for food, for cans of food, boxes of cereal, boxes of oats, rolls of toilet paper, paper towels, tissues, and having it delivered to my house and watching that every day through my video doorbell to see it's still on the front deck before I got home 2 weeks later.
No porch pirates?
Sorry?
No porch pirates?
No porch pirates for that one. But I
Very
watched
good.
3 big boxes on my front porch for 2 weeks from Trinidad every single day.
Wow.
I contacted my sons, one who lives in Connecticut and one who lives in Boston, and said, you guys should stock up, and they didn't. And then they were scrambling a little bit for supplies, but I was able to share my toilet paper and soap and cans of food and everything else with them, in the next couple of months.
Cool. All right. So we thank you, Takur, and we'll go over to Govind now. I have a 3-minute timer, and I'll give you this countdown on my hands here, like the Academy Awards, Govind. Okay.
I running through bullet points, 1.5 minutes.
All right.
So during the time, I was feeling like a prisoner with a key in his hand because you couldn't go nowhere, although you're free. Then we had new perspectives to life, the human survival system. What it is keep us alive is much more than food keeps us alive. I got a better appreciation of our whole survival environment. The concept of personal quarantine. I knew about quarantine for a country, but now it's what personal quarantine, and I'm in it for 15 months now. That whole concept of social distancing was something new and novel. And the whole issue of staying home, they would know we up there 3-4 times for the year, right? Distancing from friends is something was new to me. And then Zoom and teaching, not seeing the students at all. You don't even know if they're on the other side. The other thing is that everyone assumed you were waiting for the next email to attend it, and they wanted everything yesterday. What was novel was that Microsoft was tracking my movements with my cell phone. And when I started to stay home in my own personal quarantine, they emailed me to ask if I had COVID. Right? And what is also interesting, I'm still looking at it now, is how governments manage disasters and the politics of sickness and death. The other thing is that we have a cancer culture, but I'm not sure if it's a cancer culture or laziness on my behalf. And then I think we also need some Zoom-free days. 1.5 minutes. That is it.
All right. Thank you. What you said about governments handling disasters, that harkens back to the book that we had done, Paradise and Hell, right? About how governments react in disasters, which often is not very good, right? Yeah. Any questions for Govind before we move on to Ian? No? Okay, sounds like we're good. Ian, you got the floor, buddy.
You are on mute, Ian.
You're on mute. Yeah.
That is one of the things. He's demonstrating how COVID has impacted him. You're on mute.
Take 2.
Yeah. Oh, buddy.
13th of March, 3 p.m. I'm driving on the road, radio on, listen to a nice Indian song. Bam shot I hear school closed. Well, I told them before I left, I said, I'm not sure we come back to school Monday morning. Well, I'm still waiting for the next Monday morning to go back to school. Wearing masks caused me to get an infection in my nose, and it keeps on going and coming. So I'm having a really bad time wearing masks. All right, wearing a mask, you can get locked up. Not wearing a mask, or you're not wearing a mask now, you could get charged. So we kind of change around in society what we really do it. I have become intolerant to long pants. I haven't seen, I can't remember where I left my pair of boots and my shoes because I no longer wear shoes. I only wear slippers and sandals. I've been doing a lot of work around the house because I'm not the one to go on the treadmill and all over, but I could do some carpentry and put on tiles and all that. So I've been doing lots of work trying to finish off the house, what was left undone since we built it. I remember in 1994 when I started to teach, and that's when computers now coming into education in Trinidad and internet and all that. I was saying, you know what? I can't wait for the day I could relate or link with my students like distance. Now it's a fact of life. It has changed the way we will do education in this country, where we can continue to teach on weekends, in the holidays, keep our students on task and all of that. I am ready to retire, but this is where it's going to go. On a personal note, my son who has retinal damage requires an aide to sit with him in his class. All right? He no longer have an aide, but he have daddy and mommy. So we sit with him, sit there and let him do his work on his own, but we're there with him. And he generally is doing better because of his situation. All right? He's now able to use the computer and take his own class, complete his online assignments and tests and everything. And I'm seeing a great change and development on his part. And that for me is the biggest thing for this last few months we are in this thing. All right?
And that's a positive. That's a positive, right?
That's a positive. And while you all were talking, while Denison was talking about his wife, my wife was sitting close to me. And then I told her, you know what? I reflected on the students who were the ones who were bullied in school. They are now safe at home. All right? So that's my input. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ian. Questions for Ian?
But are you sure that last statement is correct? That students are being less traumatized at home than they are at school?
I mean, the bullied students who were in school, they are safe at home now.
Assuming that their parents don't abuse them as well.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of incidences of online bullying in Trinidad? We have a lot of that in the US.
Well,
what's it like?
What we have is the teachers being bullied now by people bombing classrooms and using foul language. But in terms of the students, no. But what we also have is students, like what Govind would say, they are present on screen, but they are absent. So they put, like everybody here is present, but they're not here. They go on the bus in the line and they'll come back just at the end of the class. but it's challenging in some of the classes, yes.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Ian. Dennison, why you don't want Larry to go next?
Well, boy, I make a mistake.
We had to send you back to Battlefield class. All right, Mr. Ramden, you got the floor.
Yeah, last year was really challenging for me. I ended up having to work maybe 60-hour weeks when it started because I was on the front line of it all. In the absence of a vaccine.
How many hours, Larry? Sorry, what did you do? How many hours?
I was working about 60 hours a week.
Okay.
When we had the shutdown from March 10th, my staff, I had to go to skeleton staff. So while people were coming in once every 3 days, I still had to go in every single day because there were a ton of meetings and everything. The town manager used to joke with me when he said, when I'm leaving, I know there was one car I would always see in the back of town hall. Yours. In fact, we had having to advise the community, advise the internal council, the department heads on actions they should be taking. It was challenging shutting down recreation and all of that. The towns became ghost towns essentially. So, but the work kept on. I think one of the challenges I had was my wife had to teach from home, and I would come home and thinking she was home all day. So, you know, everything should be ready when I walk in the house, not thinking, and she would always tell me, she say, I am working from home. Because I'm home doesn't mean I'm not at work. Also, really adapting to having to wear face coverings wherever you go. And I was the one who was advocating it in my community and telling people why they need to socially distance. One woman who is a grandmother came to me and we were talking, and she said, you know, one of the biggest challenges was not being able to hug her grandchildren. And of course, I went and I found pediatric masks for her and got it to say, you know, wear some gloves and hug your grandchildren, feel the warmth, you know, and those are the type of things. We saw more mental health issues increasing as a result. Of course, food insecurity in the community I work in, we saw 100% increase in people going to the food pantry. It is starting to peter off now. Of course, being in the know and knowing where to get things, we were never out of supplies, went with the wife to the wholesale stores and did purchasing. It is rewarding, and Massachusetts is finally out of the woods. Our emergency order expires on Wednesday of next week. People with vaccinations can go outside without having to wear it. So we're in a really good state here, and I'm finally getting to take a week's vacation next week.
Thank God. Thank God. Any questions for Mr. Ramden?
Great job, Larry.
Yeah, Larry, you really accept that excuse that she didn't have food on the table and she was home all day?
It's funny how
Listen,
that when you work
there's some
from
questions
home,
that you do ask. And I did get to see the beginning and ending of Silverado during this time. There's another one. If fellas want to find out about it, come to the line next year and PK will give you a full explanation. Silverado is a really good movie.
It's a pity slip away in the middle. You get the beginning and the end.
Listen, I can't take you nowhere, you know. I tell you, hush him out. Don't share the secrets.
Yes, Dennison.
Love
Don't
to
be
see you, boy.
surprised if you see
You
Larry
can't tell you nothing.
to answer that question.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's go to Mr. Linhurst there. And then after that is Awesome and Peter, right? Peter, two of the Peters coming after that. Yes. You're on mute, Linhurst.
Linhurst, you're on, who is next? Linhurst? Linhurst,
Yeah,
you're
Linhurst on mute.
man. Can't hear you.
You're on mute still, Linhurst.
You need to take off, you need to put on your mute, man.
Try it.
Okay,
Right.
there you
yeah,
go.
we can hear you now.
HIJKLMN. H for holder.
No, we're going by first name. We're going by
First name, sir.
First name, yeah.
All this time gone there, you know.
Yeah, this thing had absolutely zero impact on me, save and except for the concern for other human beings. I have been working from home for the last 5 years. I do my client stuff online. I visit the office when I have to. And actually it has forced our industry to become more efficient because people go to a meeting and bullshit their way through the meeting, and then after the meeting have to have a meeting. As it is, having to submit your stuff online, you are analyzed based on your competence. So you can't really fudge. They could go on Google and shit, but we don't find answers to our questions in your field on Google. So it has actually helped the industry get rid of a lot of freeloaders. It has unfortunately exposed the youngsters who have gone through school, get qualifications and think that they know everything. It put them in a real shitty situation in terms of the true competence. So they're the ones who are suffering from the lack of exposure to coaching, discussions in the office and stuff like that. But it has also given them a wake-up call now in terms of valuing experience versus just having a degree or 2 degrees or stuff like that. So it has exposed the industry and ripped it apart, actually. Personally, no impact, none whatsoever. I am up at 3 in the morning online because I deal with companies in different parts of the world. So nothing has really impacted on me in terms of lockdown, wearing a mask. I work in the oil field, so basically offshore, we might have H2S, you have one full SBAs, that kind of stuff. Lockdown is not a problem. I spent 5 years in the Amazon, isolated from the rest of the world. That was the best time in my life. So I'm actually enjoying the antisocial aspect of it. So that's cool. But it's just a concern for the other people in the world who may not be able to adjust and have to adjust. And of course, the ill effects in terms of death and illness on families. We have always maintained, I have had sanitizer in all the vehicles that we have for the last 10 years. So my habit would be, we go to the gas station, we go to the grocery, whatever. Years gone by, the cars and the house is full of hand sanitizer. So nothing like that had an impact on us in terms of having to improve that aspect of your life. And then because I smoke, I don't stand close to people. So social distancing was always comfortable for me. There are positives in everything, Peter can. Yeah. So basically, absolutely no adjustment. We good. Yeah.
Good. Leonard, did you stop, or do you have a storage of toilet paper at home? Just ask.
No, normally I didn't partake in this jackass, as a new Trini word, that was taking place in Trinidad. We buy certain stuff by the bales and stuff like that. The household was very small during this time. It was just Alicia, myself, and mommy. We have relationships with people, with supermarkets, wherever. And then I found out that being over 60, I could actually go to JTA at 7 o'clock in the morning before they open to the public. It's just that they want to see my ID because like I am looking like 60. So there were certain privileges. You just had to get up early and take advantage of it. You go to the gas station at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5:30, you have no line. You get your stuff that you need and you get back in home. So it was never a problem. There's still are places that they sell little 6-pack of beer, stuff like that. So it's no issue. Nothing really. You know, Zoom is something we are accustomed to in the oil field in any event. All the platforms for meetings and stuff like that, because you're always interacting with people in different parts of the world. So there was not any adjustment to us at all, but to this household at all.
you know. Alicia works in a separate department in the bank, so they're a unit, so they don't really interact with the public. So that lent a little bit of safety. My sister and they had real serious protocols at the beauty salon. And so we were pretty lucky so far. So we just thank God for that and we're going ahead.
Thank you, Linus. Okay, we'll move on now to Orson, and then we'll have Peter Holder, and then Peter Can, if my alphabet is correct. Okay, Orson.
Thank you. So the last year and a half, unlike Lyndhurst, has been one of the most traumatic years in my professional career, because I part of my work is done at a nursing home, and nursing homes, as you know, were among the hardest hit during the COVID pandemic. So life was stressful for probably a 4-month period. I was working 7 days a week. So in addition to the stress, personal relationships were frayed. We had one physician who, if you sneezed, she wanted to do a COVID test. And some of us were not as aggressive, especially initially, about doing COVID tests on everyone for every little sniffle. And so that really strained interpersonal relationships. And found out later that she was pregnant, and that's probably why she was so anxious. I never considered me being a little bit naive that she was pregnant at the time, and maybe that's why she was acting that way. So we lost a couple physicians, not entirely because of COVID, but probably at least partially due to that. So in addition to seeing people dying around me, patients regularly every day for a good 45-day period, having to deal with all the interpersonal stuff. I mean, it was just crazy. And I'm in a leadership position at the nursing home, so everything came to me, and so things were crazy. In addition to the professional, I had an uncle in Orlando who was in a nursing home and died of COVID. Never had a funeral as far as we know. I kept on asking my family, hey, when's the online funeral? And nothing ever happened. So, stuff like that. Had a friend who I grew up with in Trinidad who died of, I think he had end-stage renal disease and was on dialysis, but he died, and he's around my age. So that, and you didn't really get a chance to, the Zoom link wasn't working. I tried to Zoom into his funeral service and it wasn't working. So you kind of get the gist. So that's about it.
So Orson, I would imagine that the emotional toll as a doctor, where you are there to help people, and you're essentially helpless in those early days.
Yeah.
It's just knowing that they have it, and probably 2 or 3 days later, you're expecting them to be dead. I mean, that kind of emotional toll on you and your co-workers, your colleagues, nurses and doctors, must have been horrendous.
Yeah, it was terrible because during the early part of the pandemic, they were actually blaming nursing homes, like if it were, the nursing homes didn't bring COVID to the United States. It's not the nursing home's fault. But the one thing about the United States that you will learn, the first question people ask is, who is to blame? So even with COVID, even with a pandemic, people was always asking that question. Well, who is to blame? Yeah.
And with all of that, Orson, you still made time to do all these presentations.
Yeah.
Unmute,
Yeah.
unmute. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Well, this was my, yeah, I sent in one of my emails. These were my therapy sessions, and I wasn't kidding. So that's why I made it, because I was like, I need a break. And this was my break. So
Excellent.
thank you. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Austin. Off to Mr. Holder there. Where are you there? Philadelphia now?
Yeah, I'm close to Philadelphia, just outside of Philly.
All right.
So I'll try to answer this in several ways. So I traveled to Trinidad, I think, before, right when it was starting off in Asia. So I was and then we were a little bit. I traveled with a couple other guys because we went in for the Panorama semifinals, which is one of the things I've been doing for many years. I go in for the semifinals because it allows me to see more bands than would typically make the final. Like, for example, if you want to hear an arrangement by Andy Norell, he's not making the final. I know Austin, but you will hear his band in the semifinals. So we did that, and then when we came back, things started to progressively get worse. And then since I work for Boeing, the economic impact to the company has been extreme because of the, we have acres of land with airplanes, brand new airplanes that have not been delivered, and compound that with we had some technical issues with the 737 Max. So we are still trying to navigate out of that economic condition. Fortunately, I've been able to maintain my employment throughout, and working from home. By nature, I tend to be more on the introverted side, so that the lack of socialization was not very impacting to me personally. During that time frame, I also had, I have my stepdaughters with me in addition to my youngest daughter, and that was a little bit difficult though, because the kids, finding activities for the kids was sort of difficult. They'd like to go to Chuck E. Cheese, for example. This Chuck E. Cheese was closed for quite a bit, so. And then even in the St. Louis area where we were for the most of 2020, the parks were closed for a while because they didn't want the kids touching the surfaces and potentially spreading. And then having the little ones wear masks and constantly having to tell them put it over your nose. So that was a little bit, but from a personal level, it gave me some time to stay at home a lot more. I mean, so, not on Netflix, Guru and I are now sharing movie recommendations, which is kind of cool. From a exercise perspective, which is something I like to play a lot of table tennis, and so I had to stop that because, and it's not because the clubs were closed all the time, but it's the fact that you hold the ball, you send the ball to the next guy. There's a potential for. So I have not been in any social situations where I have to play. So I think I'm at the end of my 3 minutes because I set a timer.
Well done.
If you have a question, let me know. So,
Hey, Peter, I have a question. What type of hair dye do you use?
So, Ahmad, I'm gonna out you on this. So we were up in Massachusetts one year, and Ahmad looks at me and he says, "Is that your real hair?" I said, "No, it's a toupee." He says, "No, that can't be a toupee. No toupee looks that bad." So I use no hair dye.
I deny that statement. I deny that altogether. Peter,
And yes, I do like Andy Norell, by the way.
Yeah. How old is your stepdaughter or whatever?
So I've had I have, for a while I had a 16-year-old, 8-year-old, and a 4-year-old with me. So now the 16-year-old just turned 17, and then she's not here with me right now. So she's with her paternal father, and so I have the 8-year-old and the 4-year-old with me still. But things have opened up, and then we have routines now. We go to the park still, but before we get back in the car, you have to use sanitizer. I am a Costco shopper. like Taku. But Taku, I ran short, so I ended up having to go online at Walmart to get toilet paper. That's not gonna happen again.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Thanks, Peter. Now over to Peter Can, the owner.
Oh.
And then I guess we're going to Mr. Poon King, but I see he's on the phone, so we'll see how he's doing.
Yeah,
All right, owner.
You guys, so many of you, I find really amazing. You know, I like how Peter say he had slight technical problems with his 737. Technical problems. That's good. That's good.
In relation to COVID.
Yeah, and I just can't imagine the thought of having two 8-year-old and a 4-year-old and having to look after them by myself. Like, you ought to be a giant, man. That's crazy. I couldn't do it.
Patience.
Yeah, real patience. Anyway, with regard to me, I'm lucky in a lot of respects because, like some of you here, I didn't lose my job. I didn't lose income. I got paid right through. The online learning thing I find is killing me physically because I spend so much time in front of the computer just absorbing this radiation. And because I'm home and I'm close to the window, I smoke like a freaking chimney. So that's
According to
horrible.
Linus, smoking saves your life. So go ahead.
Yeah. So that part of it is pretty bad, but I enjoy solitude, so the lack of socializing is that doesn't bother me at all. It's who I am. So I enjoy going out and driving and not having to deal with traffic. I could find park anywhere. The groceries are still open, so I could always get food. So the impact on me in those terms were minimal. But I lost some people, you know. I lost some people. So
To COVID, Peter?
huh? Yeah.
To COVID? Yeah. That's tough. Yeah.
Sorry, Peter.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing that, Peter. Mr. Poon King, the other PKs, I believe it's your turn. Then we're coming down to Radford, I guess. Then me, then DP, then the other DP. Okay.
His first name.
Yeah.
R-E is Radford.
Yeah.
And Richard is R-I.
Oh, sorry.
E at the start of the alphabet, I halfway in the alphabet.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Battleshield. So we'll go to Radford now.
Okay, March the 13th, Trinidad time. I usually go to Trinidad from late December to the end of March. So I left here on December the 31st, 2019, I guess, scheduled to come back on March the 30th, 2020. I did what I had to do, visit schools, etc. I had problems this time in that many people, some schools didn't want me because, hey, COVID coming and this sort of stuff. But I have always scheduled a trip to Barbados to visit the schools there. Guess what weekend? March the 14th weekend. It was said that the schools were told that they were closing on March the 13th. A day after arriving, I arrived on Saturday. The day after arriving, the Trinidad government decided that non-nationals will not be allowed into Trinidad. Guess who is a non-national? I am. And they're not going to be allowed from the Tuesday. So I had to rush to the airport, check with Caribbean Air, etc., to get a flight back to Trinidad, which I did. In fact, I got back on the Tuesday itself. They were closing at midnight. So that's one of my first experience with COVID.
Sorry, back to Trinidad or back to Toronto?
Back to Trinidad.
Oh, Trinidad.
I usually go to Barbados.
Oh, okay.
Toronto to Trinidad, Trinidad to Barbados, Barbados back to Trinidad, and then to Okay. So because of that, I heard after getting back to Trinidad a day or so later, reading in the paper that there was a flight from Barbados in which there were 2 people with COVID. A few days later, I got a note from the health ministry that I was sitting in the proximity of the people that were involved with COVID. So that's my first experience with COVID. And of course, the usual quarantine. We had already decided that my wife and I will quarantine anyway, right? The next plan, I was getting a flight back to Toronto because I couldn't get a flight from Martin 13 anymore because, hey, airports closed, etc. I was brought back to Toronto by the Canadian government, okay? So that's one incident. Second incident with COVID occurred 2 Saturdays ago. I went to the garden center to get some stuff. Looking at the shelf for what I wanted, no problem. This guy came and stood about 2 feet from me. And I gave him the usual, keep your distance. What do you think was his response? Fuck off. No, just fuck off. This is a guy, an old white guy over 80 years. You know what was my response? Same to you. and I moved back, keep my distance, and he walked away. And as he walked away, he said, "You fucking idiot." My response was, "It takes one to know another." That was it. Those are my 2 experiences, direct experiences with COVID. The third situation involves a family member on my wife's side who recently got married, living with his new wife, her mother, grandfather, and grandmother. 5 people in the house. The brother-in-law lived away from them, came to visit the grandfather. Guess what? He didn't know he had COVID, and all 5 members of that family ended up with COVID. 3 of them were in the hospital. The wife was 8 months pregnant, the grandfather, and the mother. The only person who was kind of safe was the grandmother at home. They all ended up with COVID. The 3 of those people in the hospital ended up in coma. The wife, 8 months pregnant, in a coma. They had to remove the baby through a cesarean. Okay? Granted now, everything is more or less, the grandfather died. Okay? The mother is on oxygen at home. The baby is fine. The wife is now fine. And the relative is also fine. So those are my 3 experiences that I thought I'll relate to you. I am retired. The other factors we'll talk about at some other time. Okay.
Thanks, Radford. Okay. Winkin, I was going to send you to the back of the line, but, I'll be nice.
All right, thank you. Well, I suppose I look at it from a personal point of view, a professional point of view, and then take it from there. I mean, like some of the other guys on this chat have admitted, I too am a bit of an introvert, although I do socialize as an introvert. So I think I was capable of dealing with lockdown. And I know the quarantine, the isolation is there for a reason. I can rationalize it quite easily, and I can be quite happy in my space. But I live amongst a household of extroverts and in-betweeners and whatever it is, and they had a big difficulty. So that was a challenge when I would say, let's stick with the rules. We can't do this, we can't do that. they would want to push the envelope. Like a case in point, they were asking what we going to do for Christmas. I said, well, there's nothing for Christmas. No uncles, aunts, whatever it is. And I kicked the can down the road. I said, ask my older brother, who's like the patriarch now. And if anybody knows him, he just said in one sentence, no, end of story. So that was a challenge. From a professional standpoint, I'm practicing medicine now differently, and I'm sure Orson will relate to this, than how we are accustomed practicing medicine. I mean, you develop bonds with patients, and it comes home when somebody dies, and all you can do, words can comfort so much and no more. All you can do is give the next of kin an elbow bump. That's all you can do, you know, and it hits you hard. It hits you hard as a doctor when that's all you can do. Professionally as well, I tend to be a stickler, and when it comes to protocols, and I recognize COVID kills, but people who aren't sticklers, who don't have any streak of OCD in them, they just don't follow rules and they let things fall by the wayside. And when I call it out, they're not going to listen. And that just irks me, because I know if I get COVID and I bring it home, I'm bringing it home to my loved ones, you know, but they just in a different world. I mean, just yesterday morning, my wife asked, you're not wearing a tie to go to work? I said, no, I have not put on a tie for more than a year and a half. I put on street clothes, I go to work, I take them off and I put on scrubs. I'm not going to wear a tie to drive from home to work to take off a tie. So I've stopped wearing ties. All right. I will leave the rest for another time. Yeah.
Any questions for Mr. Poonting? Dr. Poonting, sorry. No? We're good. All right. So I guess, keep me straight, Richard, I'm next, right? All right. So when I was thinking of these things, I found that the few things that I thought of were kind of double-sided coins, right? For
Okay,
example,
time up.
Sorry?
Time up, sorry.
Thanks. Friends, eh? Anyways, yeah, like, for example, it didn't change much for me because the previous 4.5 years before COVID, I was in treatment. So my routine was 1 week of recovery where I ain't doing nothing. I ain't seeing nobody. I could barely go on the computer for a week, and then the following week was a gradual build up and that sort of stuff. So no, it felt like the world came backwards to me. I mean, let's not minimize all the death that's out there, but just from a personal point of view, the world came back to me. Same thing with travel. Two-sided coin here was that, okay, I'm not having any chemo, not because of COVID, but because things improved. So I'm not having any chemo. All this time we wanted to travel a little bit, we can't travel far from a budget point of view, but maybe to go to Trinidad or whatever. I couldn't do that before because I was in treatment. But now I'm out of treatment and the world shut down. What the hell is that? So I can't go anywhere now. The other thing is my mom was at the stage in February of 2020 where we were looking seriously at getting her into a seniors residence, right? And in February, if something was open, we'd have probably put her in there. And 3 weeks later, COVID hit and ravaged all them old folks' homes. So probably that saved her life. That we didn't get through to put her in the home. At the same time, it creates difficulty because she needs more care than what we are capable of giving her. When I say we, it's my extended family, but really it's fallen onto my one sister, and it is a challenge for her when you're dealing with somebody with dementia and all of the things you have to keep. You're essentially dealing with a
No, it's
2-year-old
not
or
on.
4-year-old,
It's
right?
just cool from my.
That's difficult for my sister. Fortunately, in the near future, hopefully she'll be vaccinated. Space will be available, and we'll get her there and relieve the burden from my sister. And the last thing I would say is that recently we had a death of my niece about 5 or 6 weeks ago, a 24-year-old from epilepsy, severe sudden serious epilepsy thing. I forget what it's called, SUDEP. And the hard part about that was that you couldn't really offer comfort. You had a maximum of 10 people, including the priest, at the funeral and at the gravesite. At that time, we were in serious lockdown, so we had to do a little exchange. I went to the funeral at the home, and my daughter, who was very close to her, went to the gravesite. But then there were so many other cousins and all that could and would have wanted to be there. And then to share grief, a hug to my sister, a hug to my nephews, would translate so much more in grief and comfort than words, in spoken at a distance. So those were my experiences with COVID-19. Any questions or any comments?
Hey, Roger, you should probably let Wayne go before DP.
Why is that?
So that DP could get enough time.
No, we will try to have DP be limited. If Linus could do it, DP could do it.
DP, you taking that, boy?
Perfect.
You taking that?
No, I limited.
All right, DP is yours.
Okay, like you all know, I'm a very introverted guy. But in any case, I dance, as you know, and COVID has just absolutely and totally destroyed the entertainment industry. Okay, since March last year, there's been no dancing. Okay, all the dance places have closed and have sold, and there's no other thing. Okay, I'm talking dance teachers.
Yes,
have been unemployed.
2022
I'm talking
Tundra that I created.
I'm talking about musicians. I'm talking about DJs. I'm talking about promoters. All of them shut down.
Livelihoods.
Okay. What I've also found is that maybe because of the impact that it has had on the community, and the dance community is a close one. A lot of people tend to go with the propaganda and the fake news. About the effects of this thing, and it's so unnecessary. And I have lost some, some friends in the community just because of the stupidity of the whole thing. People likening the wearing of masks to being in a Hitler concentration camp, and so I have no clue about what it is this really saying. On a professional level, there is the teaching, and we touched on some of that before. And projecting into the future, I see academic integrity being important because many of us have gone to open book testing. Okay, the future really is in online proctoring. Many people have started to do that to maintain that kind of, academic integrity for your exams.
Online what?
Answer.
Online
proctoring using a webcam. Okay, so you have to sit in front of the webcam and you just kind of pick up a book and read. Once you turn away from the camera, I'm afraid that's it for you. Okay, or when you look down, or I see you doing something that is not normal, okay, that is it for you. In terms of personal, two things. Well, I've been in good health. I haven't been sick, which is interesting because every year when the flu passes around, I come down with something. And you know, I've lost people just like everybody else. Our sister died last year, although it wasn't COVID related, but the experience was that one person in the hospital per day. Okay, and that one person had to be authorized, pre-approved. Okay, and that was tough. Okay. The other thing too is that, you know, saying goodbye to people using the using FaceTime, you know, because my wife, and you know, she passed. And the day before she passed, we had to basically say goodbye using iPad, you know, and that wasn't easy. So, you know, I think the proliferation of, you know, fake news and propaganda and stuff in this time suggests that, you know, you have a lot of people outside there who just eat that stuff up without any basis. So did I keep under the 3 minutes?
No, you're over, but that's good. That's normal. That's expected. But any questions for Roger? No, we're good. Okay, but I think last but not least is Mr. Pascal.
Yes, sir. So for me, in some ways, the pandemic affected me. In other ways, it didn't. I am a mix between introvert and extrovert, and I could spend a lot of time by myself. I'm an artist, as you guys know, so I could stay inside, pick up my easel and paint, and spend a lot of time just doing art, or pick up a microphone and sing a song, you know. In terms of career, it didn't affect me either, because I work from home for the past 10 years. I've been working from home. In my field, we work from home. But there are 3 areas where the pandemic affected me. I like to go to the cinema. So, you know, I miss going to the cinema, really. And my wife and I, we decided we wouldn't go to any place where you have a lot of people. So every now and again, we like to go out and eat, you know, have a meal, Pandas or somewhere, some restaurant somewhere. And I really miss that. There was coming a time I really wanted to go to the restaurant and eat. But we made that rule for ourselves. We wouldn't do that also. But here's the big one. As all of you guys know, I'm into church. And church was really a challenge for during the time of the pandemic. A lot of people who go to church had to rethink, how are we going to do church when you can't congregate in a building? And so I think it caused a revolution in the church, guys. People who never adopted technology in their life before in church had to force themselves now to do Zoom and have a preacher preach from one end, okay, through the camera, and you have a congregation is now virtual. And now you have things like we're trying to sing, we're going to sing virtually and all that kind of stuff. It presented a lot of challenges, but it caused people in the church to think creatively. How are we going to do communion? Well, there are these disposable communion packets you could buy with the fruit, you know, the fruit of the vine or the juice and the bread all in one little disposable cup, and you could buy that as in a box. And so some churches were doing that, you know, they do the communion virtually. So things like that, I felt that it was good for everybody who did church to think outside of the box and see how you can use technology to do the things that you're accustomed doing inside of a building. So for me, it wasn't hard because I am into technology all day working, you know, the work I do. But there was, for some people, boy, that was really, really a challenge. So that's it for me. That's it.
Thank you, Wayne. Any questions or comments for Wayne there? And all of you introverted guys have a question for the introvert.
So, Ducky, not going to
Amen.
church was a pro or a con?
For me?
And how did they collect tithes? How did they do collection?
Yeah, that's always a challenge too. So some of them, they have, you could make a deposit online. They have an online,
PayPal.
Yeah, PayPal, things like PayPal, correct, exactly.
So even in the face of a pandemic, they're making sure they get their money.
Peter, where you started?
Is there a little bit of cynicism in that?
No,
a little bit, a little bit.
So there's expenses to all this new technology to get the message out. So just chill.
I'm just asking innocent questions.
Yeah,
Gotta
sure.
pay for Zoom.
Yeah. You're
use
Halo
trouble,
caller. Let me thank all of you guys for your sharing your personal experiences. I feel like we scratched the tip of the iceberg, and 3 minutes is not enough time to touch on all the things that you guys wanted to talk about. But thank you very much for sharing that, and it's given us a little bit of insight in all of the challenges that we've had and how people have dealt with things. And it's amazing how many of us guys are introverts. All right, Mr. Gurras, you have a question.
I just wanted to say something about the losses that we've all experienced. Talking about emotional losses. Hearing some of these, I realized that almost every one of us had experienced some loss, either through COVID or just the emotional loss. And it's important that we take the time to acknowledge that. And the first one I had to deal with among the group, and when those brother died, which was very early in the COVID. Actually, that was the first COVID-related funeral that I actually attended online, because those brothers, the same one who used to teach, who used to be the assistant in, it's Terrence. Terrence who used to be there.
Terrence, yeah.
Right. Terrence and I ended up working in methanol plant for about 6 or 8 years or whatever it is I was there. And I remember just looking at that and reminiscing on how I could have been at that funeral, because I think he died just when we had the lockdown. But it made me realize when I was listening to all this, because of the short time, we couldn't go into everything, but we should also recognize that and our prayer should really go out for everybody there with that, So
it has had obvious impacts on each one of us in our own way here. Yeah, very good.
Can I just add a couple? I didn't mention this when I spoke up earlier. So I had personal losses also as part of the pandemic. I lost 2 cousins also. But I also what is interesting is that also none of us mentioned that the fact that we now have this Wednesday forum, that's actually been one of the benefits of the of the pandemic.
Actually, that is so true, because it was Wednesday night.
Yeah,
that was my salsa night. My classes.
Yeah.
On Wednesday night. So that stops.
There's been a great forum for support throughout the pandemic.
Yeah.
But I want to ask something. The data that Roger presented would have been a lot of research, and it's quite useful. So can you send that separate from the link to everybody?
Sure. Yeah. You mean like I have the PowerPoint.
PowerPoint. Yeah.
I can send
add
that
the link to the interactive map.
Oh, okay. Yes, I will add that too. As well. Yeah.
All this for free, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's.
Well, that's how we do it here. Everything free.
Yeah. I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I think I think the interactive map, the last map, Linus, was maybe from a Canadian site, but obviously it's free and you can look at it and look at different things on it. So yeah, absolutely, I'll send that out.
Okay.
So on a different note, and hopefully this is not putting you on the spot, but how are you doing, Roger?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm doing good, boy. It's been 15 months since my last treatment, right? So I'm doing well. My biggest concern was I had some shoulder tendinosis, not tendonitis, but tendinosis. And the concern was, well, how is this going to affect my golf, right? Am I going to be able to golf? But I went for my initial visit to the physiotherapist, Samir, this morning. A nice guy, and I asked him, and he says, yeah, you should be able to golf so long as the pain is not severe. So I was happy. I'm very happy. I continue. I'm going for a CT scan in about 2 weeks, and that tells the story of the next chapter, whatever that CT scan says. And I am, knock on wood, hoping that it will continue. I'll continue to be able to stay off of treatment for another 6 months.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
That's
Thanks,
great.
Peter.
Guys, let me take just one more minute to just show the schedule and point out a couple of things. So next week, DP is going to lead the session. The week after, Gurahu is going to lead, and the week after that, Holder will lead. So that's all that I want to point out. And so, Peter Can, if you're going with health, by the amount of hair people have on their head, you'll notice that Roger have more than me and DP.
Oh, but oh.
Not the pizza, not the pizza.
Yeah.
I have hair here, you know, I have plenty here.
Yeah.
DP, do you have any descriptions of what you're going to present next week as a?
Yeah, okay, so here's the thing. I had started to put together something on Caribbean music, okay? But then I realized, you know what, this thing is just gonna be too much. So then I said, well, let me do something on Kaisu, right? You know, so if you guys want to have a real good time next week, listening to, you know I sent out a survey after I have to you know, take my belt and beat some of you all because you all have not responded yet.
Yeah, so guys,
you know, I don't know why you guys want $1 million or what. You
Yeah.
know?
You want a free donkey to give them?
Probably. Okay.
I see the first question. Who is you? And I
Who
say,
is you?
nah,
Who is you? Yes.
Who is
Okay,
you?
so-
Yes, Mr. Teacher. But nonetheless,
So-
so next week we're gonna be talking Calypso. Okay, from the early come right back up, you know, to the 70s, 80s, the things we grew up with, you know, and thus far, you know, from the survey, I get the sense that a lot of people love Caro, you know, so you're gonna be touching about a lot of these things, okay? And I'm still trying to figure out how it is to present it, whether I should use my virtual DJ setup or whether I should give a presentation of what it is. But we will see. It'll be fun. It'll be nice. It's different.
Okay, and for those of you who wondering how long the survey is, I did the survey last night. It took less than 5 minutes.
So long? 5 minutes?
Yeah. DP, and we don't want you singing, eh? Play the music.
No, I'm going to sing. Radford will sing for us.
Larry has a question.
Yes, Larry.
Is a request. I'm looking for a copy of Merchant's Pain. Can't find it anywhere to purchase.
Merchant what?
Pain.
Pain. It's also called.
Anyway, you mentioned not to sing.
Don't sing. Please. I am where
There's nobody at this point in time, yes.
It's available on YouTube, but
or you could get it from YouTube, but you want the album.
yeah. I want this
Okay.
song on
The
MP3.
song. Okay.
Be
Okay.
fine.
You could download it, man. But say what? All right.
Hopefully, DP will focus a little bit on the man himself, Maestro.
Yes. And Soka, you know how that whole thing came about with Shorty and these guys and Sundar as well, you know, in the mix. Yes. Because he was big in the dance too, you know. So, you know, we're gonna talk about people like you know, what's the guy's name again? We're gonna buy them young ladies partner like a hot dog or a hamburger.
To buy them young day.
Yeah. So we can you touch on a
Sound
lot
like
of
it's
things.
gonna be fun.
Yeah. Try to make it light, you know. All right.
Cool. All right.
Okay, guys. So that should bring us to the end of tonight's session.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Roger. Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Let me